Like it or not, as we sit or stand here today, we are all getting older. Decisions made today will impact all of our tomorrows. Some of these decisions are easy to make: to have breakfast or not to have breakfast, to lie in or not to lie in, to binge on Netflix or not. However, some decisions require thought, knowledge, and guidance and are not so easy to make: to study or not to study, to work or not to work, to vote or not to vote. My name is Caoimhe Gibbons and I'm 17 years old. When I turn 18, I plan to use my vote. What got me thinking about the to vote or not to vote issue was the unexpected results of the Brexit referendum in the UK in 2016, the fallout from which is played out daily in political corridors of power and the media. I live less than 10 minutes from the border in Ireland, where issues regarding the border are central to the locals' identity as a community. I grew up hearing stories from the border. Stories, for example, from my granny, about back when she was a child as young as 9 years old and was sent across the border with other neighbouring children to bring back basic commodities such as butter and tea leaves. The children would be warned in advance that if they caught sight of the customs men, to discard of their produce. Granny would still describe in detail the attire of the customs men, in their navy suits with shiny gold buttons and a peaked hat. My generation is privileged in that the border has not been a significant issue in our lives. I can't imagine my 9-year-old brother ever being asked to smuggle butter or tea, but we may be facing the possibility of hard custom-manned borders. The younger generation will arguably be amongst the most impacted by Brexit. Certainly, we are the target group, which will bear the consequences for the longest. As with any election, the precise age distribution of votes is unknown, making the analysis of age-related voting trends quite difficult. However, it has been widely assumed since the election that the turnout among 18 to 24-year-olds was around 36%, a figure that has allowed Brexit campaigners to say young people cannot claim they were betrayed by older pro-Brexit voters, as almost 2/3 did not bother to vote. Across OECD countries, research has shown that there are no countries in which younger people regularly turn out at a higher rate than older people to vote. So the key question is, how do we encourage young voters to go to the polls, especially young millennials and post-millennials? I've come up with a couple of suggestions. Firstly, politicians need to understand us, and we need to get a sense that they appreciate our world. To young people, politicians can appear to be monotonous and quite different from us. To engage young people, they need to establish a rapport with us and make themselves more relatable. For example, a few years ago in school, our religion teacher advised that the new parish priest would be coming to the class to introduce himself to us and to wish us well for the coming school year. What we expected to be a 40-minute-long class of yawns and boredom turned out to be a class filled with interest. We were completely engrossed as he told us stories from his past, like how he used to own a donut shop and drive a fancy car. Our curiosity was sky high as we yearned to know why he gave all of this up to join the priesthood. This created affinity and empathy as we realized that this priest was a real human being, just like you and I, and he really cared about his vocation. Politicians work extremely hard and care passionately about their vocation also. It would be wonderful if politicians had more opportunities to meet and engage with young people through school or community platforms. This would not only help us, as the youth voters, understand their aims and goals, but it would benefit the politicians also. Secondly, in order to get young people to vote, we need to find leverage. Ask any parent, when a young person is asked to engage or do something, the first question that pops into their mind is, what's in it for me? Too often, young people don't vote because they may not see the issue as relevant to them. Young people don't stay young forever. This could be addressed through a greater emphasis on CSPE, transition year modules, and a broader range of extracurricular activities so that we, as young people pre-voting age, have an understanding of current affairs and have the opportunity to debate current affair issues. Young people often think that their vote does not matter. There have been many examples of close elections being decided by only a handful of votes. For example, in 1987, Taoiseach and Labour leader Dick Spring held on to his seat in Kerry North by just 5 votes, after 6 counts and a full recount. 5 years later, he led the party to its most triumphant election ever and became Taoiseach again. We need to create an empowering environment for young people to vote, socially, physically, and culturally. The narrative peddled in the media is that young people couldn't be bothered to vote and are not engaged in deciding their future. We are dismissed as only caring about our lives on social media and not our lives in the real world. There is a real danger of this negative narrative in the media becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy and further alienating young people from participating in society. We need to hear more stories from young people who do take the time to vote. Where does their motivation come from, and how can we leverage that? As I have stood here to deliver this speech today, we have all aged by approximately 6 minutes. We need to remember that our presence is a present, especially at the polling stations. There is no better time than now to harness young people's passion and opinions through the power of voting, which is the most effective way to create change. Trump's America, Brexit, and the rise of populist right-wing parties. All around the world, the political landscape is shifting through the power of combined single votes. It is essential that we, as young people, are engaged politically and understand the power of one vote, your vote. Thank you.